Hokage Starting from the Instant Full Level, Chapter 521-540. Chapter 521, The Two-Color Domineering. 3 days later, in the unnamed waters hundreds of nautical miles away from Alabasta. A pirate ship is breaking through the waves. Several familiar figures standing on the huge deck of the ship. Lord Longyu, this ancient record pointer does point to this island, but is this island really small? Nami looked at the huge island in the distance, her face full of disbelief. Looking around, virgin forests are all over the place, and huge dinosaurs are rampant, roaring and roaring, filling the entire island. According to Nami, this riding horse cannot be called a small garden at all. It's not too much to call the dinosaur world. 3 days ago, after Longyu resurrected Crocodile, he arranged for Bastius to stay in Alabasta temporarily, and then asked Nico Robin to look for the small gardens recording our hand. This is the second island in the original book, where Luffy and the others left Rog Town and crossed the upside-down mountain in order to pursue the Baroque Work Club. Also, it is also the place where Elbaf, the legendary leader of the giant pirates, the Blue Ghost and the Red Ghost duel. Since Longyu wants to bring people into fairy tale, then these two giant pirates who offered a reward of hundreds of millions of bells 100 years ago are undoubtedly the best choice. Longyu, didn't you say that you were looking for someone to join fairy tale? Crocodile folded his arms and frowned at the huge island in front of him. He is active in the first half of the Great Channel. If it hadn't been mentioned by Longyu, he wouldn't have known that there were such primitive islands in the waters near Alabasta. However, as far as the eye can see, apart from the trees, there is no trace of human beings at all. Not to mention, look for the strong to join fairy tale. Thinking of this, Crocodile couldn't help but said, "You won't, you plan to find a dinosaur to be a member, it feels like a bit of a loss of identity." Dinosaur. Longyu touched the tip of his nose and said, "My next target is indeed not a human being, but the next two members are barely special human beings. When you see it, you will definitely say that I have good eyesight. If they learn to be domineering, I'm afraid even Chiwahai will have to weigh a thing or two." Even Chiwahai also weighed it. Listening to these words, the people present. Consciousness looked towards Crocodile. After all, there is a living target here. The strength of Crocodile, they have seen. Even the existence of Chiwahai, who is also afraid of it, I am afraid that it is definitely not a nameless person. Feeling the sight of the ship, Crocodile's face is a little bit. Hang up, he snorted coldly. Okay, since President, you said so, then I also want to see if they can really make me jealous. Hee hee, Crocodile, don't worry, there will definitely be surprises. Longyu laughed dryly. Let's see where they are first. Voice fell, he was dormant, and what he saw and heard in Longyu's body was domineering and detonated like a frenzy. The next moment, sweeping the entire island. Under the instant full level system, Longyu's domineering arrogance has already reached full level, and it can foreshadow a glimpse of the possibility of the future. It is not impossible to cover a small garden. Along with the rapid spread of coverage, Longyu's closed eyes suddenly opened, frowning, and said, "There are 4 more people than I thought. It seems that someone came to the small garden 1 step earlier than us." Things got more interesting. There are 6 people. Daz was stunned for a moment and asked, "Lord Longyu, is this the role of arrogance?" "Lord Crocodile, why don't we also learn a thing or two?" During these 3 days, Daz had thought about learning the two-color domineering from Longyu. After all, apart from him and Crocodile, there are only Dusky and Nami on the ship. As for Nico Robin, who was left in Alabasta to temporarily manage the Tomb of Nazarick. It can be said that in the past 3 days, Daz has watched helplessly, and Dusky has gradually become more skilled in the use of domineering. The domineering armament that he displayed, in the process of training against him, even his quick slashing fruit, which gave him a body like steel, also felt a tingling pain. According to Daz's calculations, after a while, I am afraid that Dusky, who is young and like a little girl, will learn iron slashing and stronger flying slashing. For Daz, his heart was on fire. Facing the fiery Daz, Crocodile glanced at Long Yu's back, snorted coldly, and said, "Humph, the mere two-color domineering is nothing special. I have some ideas recently, don't bother the president." Already. Looking at Crocodile, who stubbornly refused again as soon as he opened his mouth, Daz's expression froze and his heart felt bitter. This may be the last dignity of the strong, who must go further and further on the road to death. For Crocodile's stubbornness, Long Yu did not take it to heart. Sometimes begging others to learn, it is better to let him in turn beg for himself to be more effective. According to Long Yu, if you love to learn, you will learn, and if you don't learn, you will fail. After all, the domineering accomplishments in Long Yu's hands are recounted through the instant full-level system. Chapter 522, You Haven't Beaten Me Once. Maybe there is no way to 100% re-engraving successfully, but it is definitely much better than blindly groping in this sea. Let's go. Looking at the weather, and there will be heavy rain soon. The forest situation ahead is unknown. I'll stay to watch the boat. Nami raised her head and glanced at the still clear sky. Changbi said with a frown. For this, 3 days ago, Crocodile would definitely refute it. But along the way, after seeing with his own eyes, Nami's pure prediction, Crocodile was also full of shock. As a pirate who roamed the sea in the past, especially in the New World, that kind of sea area with unpredictable climate change, he clearly knows that a transcendent navigator is a rare opportunity for any pirate group. If Nami's accurate prediction ability is released, not to mention a large pirate group, even the Navy will rush for it. It is for this reason that, looking at the huge primitive island in front of him, Crocodile has an urgency in his heart. Desperately want to see, what is the new member's target that Long Yu said. Enough to make Chihuahai also fear. The empty space in the center of the small garden, 2 huge mountains of skeletons, and a piece of messy land are a bit shocking to see. 2 huge, hill-like bodies, holding weapons, gasped for breath. After finally looking at each other, they suddenly lay on the ground, making a dull rumbling sound, and the dinosaurs and beasts hidden in the virgin forest were scared away. Red Ghost, this time it's 10,800, the second draw. I will definitely defeat you and become Elbaf's strongest hero. With a long beard and holding a large blade, Tori said in a deep voice. Bah, you can't even beat me, and you have the face to say that you are the strongest in Elbaf. That is simply the reputation of a pirate who has fallen to our giant soldiers. You have never defeated me in a duel for 100 years. Once. The Red Ghost Brokey with a beard shaped like a broom retorted angrily. These words fell, the atmosphere of Yi and was relieved a little, and suddenly it became solemn. The Green Ghost's face sank, he propped up his body again, and roared in a hurry, You dare to question my strength and determination, I will see today, how you can defeat me, and start the next duel. Okay, who's afraid of who? Red Ghost roared and responded with a huge axe. However, before they could take action, a figure, from below, said on the shoulders of Luo Gui, 2 giant uncles, you should rest first, Sanji is lunch, let's eat first. How? Luffy pressed the straw hat on his head and looked at the 2 giants over 20 meters tall with starlight in their eyes. Especially after knowing that they were pirates, they became even more fanatical. A few days ago, Luffy, Sanji and the others stole a warship and went to see while Garp held a banquet in Rog Town. Their only purpose was to find that, who had never met before, and just by talking, they sold themselves and others to Laxus of the Navy headquarters for revenge. It's a pity that as soon as we went out to sea and entered the Upside Down Mountain, everything went smoothly. Once they left Upside Down Mountain, there were only 4 people on the huge warship. An idiot pirate, a road idiot hunter, the rest are big talkers running on trains, and lecherous chefs with the brains of Haruki. This lineup, let alone looking for enemies. I am afraid that even finding the next destination is more difficult than reaching the sky. Only thing that made them feel fortunate was that the freshwater resources on the ship were consumed at an unprecedented rate, and they came to the small garden by accident. At the same time, he also used food to meet two giant pirates. Ha ha ha, you kid, you still don't give up. You plan to fool us two old guys to leave the small garden and become your crew members. This food alone can't do it, unless you can knock us down at the same time, otherwise then but bullshit. Dongli touched his chest-length beard and laughed heartily. In his eyes, this condition is enough to reject the 444 head pirates. However, Dongli said this, but when he thought of the food from Sanji's hands. This made the two who had eaten barbecued meat for hundreds of years couldn't help but glance at each other, and in an instant, their greed defeated the giant's heroic honor and reached a consensus. Red Ghost, we have finished our duel today, and the next battle will obviously continue. Dongli said solemnly. What's more, this kid has sworn to invite us to a banquet. As the leader of the giant pirates, we are born in Elbaf, and we must not lose the etiquette of our giants. Don't you have some fruit wine there? Get some. HMPH, you have jam there too, and get some of it. For Elbaf's giant etiquette, let's go here today. Kai Gui snorted disdainfully, but his mouth hurriedly responded. However, as soon as the two of them turned around, their expressions suddenly changed, and they started drinking in unison. Little devil, get off my shoulders quickly, someone is approaching here quickly. Chapter 523, is the reward over 100 million? After 100 years of fighting, the Green Ghost and the Red Ghost are already familiar with this island. What's more, the battle also kept their physical functions at their peak level and their keen hearing, but it allowed them to further touch the threshold of a sense of domineering. Pity that they are old guys from 100 years ago, and this kind of intuition can only be done before encountering an indescribable crisis. In the moment just now, the two of them felt a tyrannical aura locked on their bodies. That feeling, though instantly vanished without a trace. However, it still made their spines go cold. As the strongest of the giant pirates in the past, someone who can make them react like this. That's definitely not an ordinary generation. Someone is coming, why can't I see it? Luffy didn't fall the first time. Instead, he raised the brim of his hat and looked around. However, before they could react, an unexpected voice sounded on Ching Gui's shoulders. Sorry for the sudden visit and disturbing you, but it's a surprise to see unexpected faces. Dongli and Broki's expressions changed dramatically. Hurriedly followed the voice, and caught sight of Longfeather who used the Laxus character template. You, who are you, and why are you here? Dongli asked eagerly. In their perception, they just said a reminder because they felt that someone was approaching fast in the forest. The perceived target is not the dragon feather on the shoulder at all. However, before they could react, a deep voice sounded again. It's here. Endless yellow sand swept through the forest. The figure of Crocodile was condensed in the open land. Immediately after him, Daz, who went on a rampage and broke down a large number of trees. Two of them had been chasing Long Yu's footsteps just now. Pity, compared to the speed of Long Yu, who displayed lightning, they were still thrown so much that they couldn't even see the taillights of the car. When they stood firm and looked up to find the trace of Long Yu, they entered the curtain, causing their pupils to shrink suddenly. Meters of huge, like a hill-like body. Yuan stared at the giant figure with bull-eyed eyes, causing Crocodile and Daz's expressions to change drastically. Originally, in their eyes, they were still thinking, Long Yu went to such a remote place, and it was not bad to be able to get two good dinosaurs. I didn't expect that there would be two. Giant. What's more, these two giants seem to be much older than they have ever seen before. Let me introduce to you, this is the goal of my trip. 100 years ago, I was offered a reward of over 100 million yuan, from the giant soldier pirates, the former head of the team, the blue ghost Tori and the red ghost Broki. Long Yu patted Dongli's helmet and said with a smile. Giants have lifespans that far exceed normal human beings. Ordinary people can live to 70 or 80 years old, which is very good. But giants have a lifespan of 300 years. 100 years of duel, for Dongli and Broki, they just missed a puberty. If we say that Dongli and Brokey 100 years ago were young men like the new giant pirate and Helding in the original book, then, after 100 years of fighting to the death, Dongli and Brokey can definitely be called in their prime. Long battles, physical fitness and strength, all belong to the peak level. Looking at the giants, I am afraid that the last giant pirate leaders, Yaruru the Mountain Beard and Yoruru the Waterfall Beard, cannot be compared with them. If it is said that people who can be called heroes of Elbaf, at least need to learn the gun of heroes, then the Green Ghost and the Red Ghost have a higher level of hegemony. That is even one of the 4 emperors, Charlotte Lingling, who also regards it as the trump card of the trump card. 100 years ago, a reward of over 100 million was offered. Daz's expression changed drastically. Looking at the 2 huge bodies, his face was full of disbelief. As for the concept of Bailey, Daz, as a bounty hunter, is very clear. Above this sea, he also has an inflationary financial order. Decades ago, the legendary great pirate, such as the world destroyer Bondewald, was only offered a bounty of 200 million. This amount, placed on the sea at that time, was astounding. It is a symbol of the strong. It has been until Roger, the Pirate King, opened the era of the great pirates. To now, the pirates of the New World, with a bounty of over 100 million, can be found everywhere. Up the reward to hundreds of millions 100 years ago is shocking. After all, even the Red Earl, who stood shoulder to shoulder with Roger, Golden Lion and others, and Brooke, who admired him, also offered a reward of more than 30 million. Now, as soon as Long Yu made his move, he dug up 2 living fossils with a reward of over 100 million. If you don't see it with your own eyes, who wants to believe that this kind of terrifying existence still exists in the world? If you can really earn income, for Fairy Tale, the strength will definitely skyrocket. Chapter 524, The Big Rubber Bell. However, when I think about this big man, if I want to leave the small garden, I'm afraid it's a bit difficult. Who are you, who dare to rob my crew? Luffy moved first. The hands suddenly stretched back and shot straight. Rubber bazooka. Who were cooking food below, were also shocked by the scene in front of them. However, when they saw clearly the figure standing on Dongli's shoulders, their expressions changed drastically. Luffy, run away. Escape. Luffy was stunned for a moment. For him, this move was a tried and true combat technique. Through the extension of the rubber, the power of boxing can be exerted to the limit. However, this idea just sprouted in Luffy's mind, and the next moment, the sight of his eyes made his pupils shrink. Bang! A dull crash resounded. Like a rocket, the fist that shot out just appeared in front of Long Yu. In an instant, he was clasped above his fist with one hand. Before long, Luffy reacted, and his right hand suddenly pulled with force. Luffy's whole body went straight to Long Yu and swept away violently. You idiot, I'm a rubber man, you can't hurt me with your bare hands. Luffy woke up suddenly and said with a big laugh. Try my rubber chimes. Words together, Luffy's head flew backwards again. In the body, just approaching Long Yu 3 meters away, the rubber neck that was stretched to the extreme suddenly stopped. Towards Long Yu Po air strike. The awe-inspiring sonic boom reverberated in all directions. Luffy, who was so fierce, and the first shot was a desperate Saburo, Zoro and Sanji also tightened their nerves. One hand clenched the handle of the knife, and the toe of one right foot pressed the soil on the ground. As long as Luffy succeeds in one hit, they will inevitably explode and launch a deadly combined attack on Long Yu. However, the idea has just emerged. And cruel smile on Long Yu's face. I'm sorry to give you a taste of the iron fist of love. Om. The 5 fingers were suddenly clenched, and the jet black armament color was domineering, quickly covering Long Yu's fist. Looking at this scene, Crocodile and Daz's cheeks twitched. They were surprised that Luffy was a rubber devil fruit. But now looking at Luffy and thinking that he has the power of devil fruit, he looks like he is invincible in the world. Even in Long Yu's hands, he didn't recognize the domineering posture of armed color at all. That look is so similar to them a week ago. Watching Luffy approaching Long Yu in an instant, like a bell, tearing apart the air and attacking Luffy. Daz and Crocodile believe that this blow will leave a deep and indelible impression on Luffy. Sakura fist gun. Bang! With a punch, Luffy's head sank in an instant. The huge impact was released, which directly made him doubt his life. Boom! The dull thunder-like collision sound resounded suddenly. The huge impact force was vented out, making Luffy instantly stunned. Under the foam at the mouth, his eyes turned white, and his whole body flew out like a cannonball. The speed was so fast that it slammed into the huge mountain of bones behind him in a blink of an eye. Bang! The mountain-like skeleton was directly smashed with two huge ribs, and one end was stuck in the depths of the mountain of skeletons. The violent scene made Zoro and Sanji's faces change drastically. During this period of time, they knew clearly that Luffy's rubber fruit was immune to physical blunt weapon attacks. The fist of his grandfather, the naval hero Garp, that he was hit head-on. You are here, it seems that you slipped out under the nose of old Carp. Long Yu looked at Zoro and Sanji. Looking at your posture, you should come to me to seek revenge, one by one, or together. Long Yu was indeed surprised that Luffy and his party appeared here. However, as he said, it is definitely Carp's credit that the four of them can come together. Sure enough, it was you. Let the old man take us away forcibly, and today I will see what you are capable of. Sanji's face sank, and his anger rose up. Originally, he was in the restaurant on the sea, in front of a gentleman, fishing for big beautiful girls. Freehand life with time to talk shit. I never thought that one day I would be punched to the ground by a violent old man. Regardless of. He called his father, his mother, and his grandfather, but he couldn't stop him at all. What's more, it was raped in front of many beauties. Thinking of this, Sanji's heart was filled with anger. Green algae head, let's do it together, don't hold back. Kappa, it should be you. The two looked at each other cursingly. However, under this kind of action, more violence erupted unexpectedly. Bang! Two dull treads sounded suddenly. Chapter 525, Thunder Magic. Like cannonballs, the two immediately kicked off the ground. The speed was so fast, it came in a blink of an eye, standing in front of and behind Long Yu, who was standing on Dongli's shoulders, forming a stance like a pincer attack. Three swords tigers. Bone and pork kebabs. Two violent shouts rang out in response, and the fierce and unparalleled attacks slashed towards Long Yu one after the other. Good momentum and speed, but can it catch up with thunder and lightning? Long Yu smiled warmly. The magic of thunder and lightning. Dang! The golden magic circle, under Long Yu's feet, suddenly burst open. The violent thunder exploded instantly like a horned dragon. At a speed as fast as thunder, it slashed down from the 9 heavens. The speed was so fast, before Sanji and Zoro could react. In an instant, the two of them were enveloped in it. Bang! The dullness was like thunder, and it rolled away. The violent blow made Sanji and Zoro freeze as if they were in midair, and even the attack in their hands suddenly became stiff. Black smoke all over his body, he opened his mouth, rolled his eyes, and fell directly to the back. Bang! The sound of heavy objects falling to the ground echoed on the huge battlefield. As soon as Long Yu made his move, he immediately dealt with the three of Luffy's three. Who was still standing in the distance, akimbo and intending to forcefully pretend to be forced once, trembled in his legs and stomach in an instant. When he met Long Yu's line of sight, he knelt directly on the ground and shivered. I am afraid that Long Yu will stare at him again, and he will kneel on the ground and call his father. Little devil, you dare to hurt my friend. Dongli spoke in a deep voice. Those eyes that stared into Bull's eyes, locked tightly in the scene of Long Yu just now, seemed to be very complicated, but really counted, it was only a short dozen seconds before and after. By the time they reacted, the battle was over. Looking at the same slender youth, Dongli and Brokey, for the first time showed a solemn expression. At least, in their eyes, this person is definitely not Luffy and they can compare. Haha, Dongli, Brokey, you don't need to be so wary of me. Long Yu patted Dongli's helmet, and when the lightning flashed on his body, he displayed lightning and landed on the open space dozens of meters away. Don't worry, this time I'm here to recruit you to join Fairy Tail. To recruit us, Dongli and Brokey were stunned at first, then looked at each other and laughed loudly. Yo ha ha ha, Brokey, did I hear it wrong? This hairy boy, he actually beat of the strongest of the giant clan. When will we, the heroes of Elbaf, be subordinated to the others? Boy, you made a wrong idea. I advise you to come from there and go back there. Don't interfere with our duel. Otherwise, don't blame us, we will do it to you. The wrath of giants can destroy the country. The rolling voices, like thunder, echoed between heaven and earth, and there was no way to disperse for a long time. Brokey didn't say anything to Dongli's remarks. But the disdain on his face was completely permeated on his face, and he did not hide it at all. In the eyes of them who have lived for more than 100 years, no matter what. No matter how strong Long Yu is, he is like a hairy child. Hee, do you still have the face, the giant hero who calls himself Elbaf? Long Yu laughed dryly, picked up a piece of meat beside him, and said, hiding in a small garden and fighting a duel for 100 years, and there is no winner or loser, that's just a show of heads. Elbaf has been destroyed for decades, Yorulu and Yalulu have been killed, the murderer is now at large, your giants have long since fallen, and you are still here looking forward to what happened 100 years ago. Honor. If you have to be held accountable, you are the culprit, and Elbaf was destroyed, you have half the responsibility. The slightly long-sounding voice echoed in the sky for a long time and could not be dissipated. Crocodile and Daz, their expressions suddenly became solemn. Lord Longyu, isn't he planning to anger these two legendary giants? Daz said with a livid look. Crocodile nodded silently and said, wait a while and be careful, the giants go crazy, but it's not. Ordinary people can stop. Spoke. Crocodile secretly took a few steps back and gave Long Yu the home court. If he hadn't been beheaded by Long Yu, Crocodile would have thought that Long Yu was a lunatic for such a move. But after trying to die, Crocodile knew very well that as long as the boy in front of him decided to do it, regardless of how reluctant the two giants will eventually board this pirate ship. That feeling is like a real fragrance. You bastard, you dare to insult and slander the hometown of our giant, Elbaf. We Elbaf have no weak ones, and there is absolutely no chance that the two elders will be killed. The roar rolled away like thunder, with a deafening smell. Under Dongli's glaring eyes, his huge hand like a mountain suddenly clenched tightly. The 5 fingers made a crackling sound of bones, and without any fancy, they smashed towards Long Yu head-on. Chapter 526, Warming Up. With a punch, the air of the whole world seemed to be stirred by an invisible big hand. Everywhere along the way, the wind swept through. With a rolling posture, he rushed towards Long Yu head-on. The violent scene made Sauron and others wake up. Seeing the giant's angry, majestic gesture, the faces of the 4 of them instantly turned ashen. Eyes turned and locked on Long Yu's body. They eagerly wanted to know how to deal with the mighty dragon feather just now in the face of the power of the giant. The momentum is good, but hiding in the small garden for 100 years is really out of touch with history. The current sea is not. The world of giants. Long Yu raised his head suddenly, his face still indifferent. The jet-black armed color was domineering, and it rolled back like a frenzy, and instantly entered the point of full-body armed color domineering. The next moment, without any fancy, towards the fist that was rolling like a hill, it was a blow in the face. Boom! The dull collision sound exploded like thunder. Under the unrelenting collision, the fists whose bodies were different in size like a gulf erupted into a fierce and unparalleled confrontation in an instant. A brief silence in the whole world. Immediately, there was a sonic boom like a thunderous explosion. The rolling air waves gave the feeling of a Category 12 hurricane passing through. Everywhere along the way, rocks flew and rolled over, and huge trees were broken in the middle. At this moment, it feels like the end of the day. After everything recovered, the center of the collision between the two appeared under a crack of the earth, which seemed to be overwhelmed, and a crack like a spider web spread out. When they saw clearly, under the huge fist, the thin figure was still unscathed. At this moment, as if in a dream, I couldn't help rubbing my eyes. God, what did I see? He actually blocked the giant's attack. Usopp was shaking all over. The tongue that speaks is stammering. Originally, in his eyes, the wrath of the giants could definitely destroy mountains and land. On his size, he should be able to crush Long Yu. However, the scene that came into view now completely subverted their cognition. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, who would believe it? Under the blow of anger, there is still popularity standing in the same place. No way, who are you? Broki's face sank, and he growled. As an old opponent who had fought for hundreds of years, Broki knew exactly how powerful Dongli was in his heyday. If you deal with it a little bit seriously, he might also be smashed into the air with one blow. Right now, it's being underestimated. Still a little devil with a very different physique. The huge gap between the front and the back subverted their cognition. Hee, you ask me who I am. Long Yu laughed dryly and said, I am your future captain and your hope for revenge. So, those little devils, you should hide to the side, the warm-up should be over. The people present at the end of the warm-up could not help but be stunned. Even Daz and Crocodile's expressions couldn't help changing. However, before they could react, Long Yu moved. Thunderbolt chakra mode. Lightning clothes. Bang! The violent thunder light instantly detonated on Long Yu's body. The moment Huo Ran raised his head, he stepped out in front of everyone's eyes. Whoosh! Like a thunderous gesture, it disappeared in front of everyone's eyes out of thin air. To react, he took the lead and appeared in front of Dongli's chest. At this moment, Long Yu was like a god bathed in thunder light, his muscles bulging like a rock. The jet black armed color is domineering, blended on the muscle cells activated by lightning, enhancing the limit of physical activation. Mysterious black-gold lightning patterns spread rapidly on Long Yu's body. Gives people the feeling that it is just like in the original book, with a strange posture like opening 4 blocks. The height that was originally more than 2 meters suddenly increased by tens of centimeters, giving people the feeling of being reborn. The aura emanating from it makes the air circulating around it distort. The violent scene made Daz's face turn pale all of a sudden, and he hurriedly looked at Crocodile. Entered his eyes, his face was also pale, and he muttered, and it was like an invisible heavy hammer, beating people's nerves. It turns out that when he fought against me, he didn't use all his strength. Looking at Long Yu who has changed into a person, let alone Crocodile, even Daz thought about it with his toes, and he was able to come up with this result. I thought it would take a lot of effort for Long Yu to kill Chihuahua. Now it seems that all riding on a horse is wishful thinking. 6 forms profound truth Valkyrie rampage body. Sakura Thor's biggest wheel. A low voice slurped out of Long Yu's mouth. Without any bells and whistles, the 5 fingers of the right hand were suddenly clenched, and they were gently lowered towards Dongli's chest. The next moment, before everyone in the field reacted. Chapter 527, Blood Splashes. Dormant, the power in Long Yu's body exploded like thunder. Boom! The violent impact, like a raging tide, with a rolling gesture, rushed straight to Dongli's chest. Feeling this overwhelming force, Dongli's face changed drastically. Before I had time to think about it, the sharp pain in my chest brought a heart-piercing taste. The black gold power flow poured down on him in a galloping posture. Boom! The huge body, at this moment, flew straight out like a sandbag. The speed is so fast that everyone just feels a flower in front of them. The gust of wind cut through the sky like a raging wave. With a rolling posture, he slammed his head on the huge mountain of skeletons, thousands of meters away. The huge impact made this mountain, which had survived for hundreds of years, as the temporary home of Dongli, shattered. The blood spit out from the mouth, splashed down like a downpour. The huge island shook violently. It felt like a giant turning over. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. Especially the four of Sauron. The pupils were as big as bull's eyes. Looking at the scene in front of him, he couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. It's all unbelievable. In their perception, the person who fought against a giant like a hill and was smashed into the air should be Long Yu. However, the scene in front of him has been subverted. Blue Oni Tori, who talks about Elbaf's strongest. The dignified giant was smashed into the air by a punch, if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes. Who wants to believe that this scene is true? And at this distance, stepping on a horse is to let the giant fly for a while. Bastard, if you dare to hurt Dongli, kill me. Brokey roared angrily. The axe dancing in his hand made a stern sound of breaking the air, and slashed head-on towards Long Yu. The speed is so fast that it is approaching in the blink of an eye. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. They eagerly wanted to see how Long Yu would deal with the powerful and incomparable blow of the giant. But, at the moment of entry, let them shrink. And looked at the huge axe that was slashing with force. Without any bells and whistles, the 5 fingers suddenly lifted. Go towards the axe that slashed across the sky. Boom! The dull collision sound resounded suddenly. The rolling air waves overturned, and the hurricane it brought up was like a 10th-level hurricane. Under his feet shattered even more. In the face of all this, under the attack, Long Yu only took a half step back. The Thunder Dragon Slayer Magic Thunder Dragon's Claw. Bang! The 5 fingers of Long Yu's right hand suddenly clasped together. The endless stream of cherry blossoms, mixed with the power of violent thunder, exploded in an instant. The seemingly indestructible thick axe was shattered in an instant, like a piece of paper. Rapid spread of the cobweb crack, the black gold thunder light, like a horned dragon, went straight to Brokey. Ah! The violent thunder light instantly enveloped Brokey's huge body. Under the screams, Long Yu, who was standing in the same place, has turned into a thunder light, taking the lead and appearing in front of him. Frantic compression of the endless thunder light in the right hand, there is no trace of fancy. He slammed into Brokey head-on. The Thunder Dragon Slayer Magic Thunder Dragon's Collapse Fist. Bang! Punch out! Like a violent thunder, the air is rapidly distorted. Rolling of the endless thunder, it poured out the might of the Wanjun. Thunder-like explosions sounded, and Brokey's huge body flew upside down like a cannonball. The speed is so fast that it is even better than Qing Gui Dongli. The violent blow shook everyone's nerves. Wherever the huge body passed, the trees along the way were directly shattered. Out from the mouth also stained the earth along the way red. In the end, it smashed into the virgin forest near the coast, thousands of meters away. Boom! The whole earth is shaking violently, and the wind and waves that are set off are like a 10th-level hurricane, which is rapidly rolling back. Under the large sand and dust, many dinosaurs and beasts hiding in the dense forest fled in panic. It can be said that looking at these 2 island overlords who have ruled the small garden for hundreds of years, fear has already been implanted in their minds. In an instant, it was knocked into the air like a broken 5 or a bag of sandbags. For the aboriginal inhabitants of this island, while the cognition is subverted, it is also a nightmare. Some dinosaurs and beasts that could not be avoided were instantly smashed into meat sauce. Splash of blood, the entire estuary was dyed red. Sauron and the others who witnessed this scene stiffened. When I think of not long ago, I still wanted to join forces to defeat Long Yu, but my spine is still, chills. If the fight just now, Long Yu would really be serious. It would be a nightmare waiting for them. It seems that the big guy can't hold back a bit. Long Yu raised his brows and smiled genially. Sauron, lend me the word Hidao. Chapter 528. I'm here to save you now. The inexplicable words made the people in the field startled. Even on the mountain of bones, Dongli who climbed up was no exception. Why did I lend you a knife? Sauron was startled. Shut up, you green algae head. It's your business if you want to die, hurry up and give me the knife. Voice, he kicked him in the face. The ancient words of Hidao flew out and under. It fell directly into Long Yu's hands. Looking at the void, standing, bathed in thunder light, like a godlike dragon feather. The moment he held the word Daoyi in his hand, the whole person's aura changed. If it is said that the moment before, Long Yu gave them to be arrogant and domineering, then the current Long Yu, giving them the feeling, is as sharp as a sharp blade. With him as the center, the circulating air has a hint of stagnation. At the moment when Huo Ran raised his head, a roaring crashing sound of waves broke out on the shoal coast of the estuary in the distance. Hu hurriedly got up, suddenly changed his expression. Looking at Braki who was still lying near the estuary, he roared in a hurry. Braki, run away, that guy is here. For hundreds of years, in addition to decisive battles, they had another way to decide the outcome. It is determined by the size of the prey being hunted. Of the hunt is the island-eating beast that exists in the waters near the small garden. Just that, for hundreds of years, while they were hunting the island-eating beasts, the island-eating beasts were also hunting them. Now, Brokey was not only injured, but also happened to fall in the direction of the mouth of the sea. This undoubtedly allowed the island-eating beasts lurking in the sea to see an opportunity to hunt. Bang! The dull sound of the impact of water waves echoed suddenly. As huge as a small island, with a body as large as 1,000 meters, and it burst out of the water directly. The large puff of water it brought up poured down like a torrential rain. The huge body, when galloping in midair, gives people a feeling of covering the sky and the sun. A pair of lantern-like eyes suddenly turned and locked on Brokey's body. A big mouth in the blood basin, and the fishy smell is brought up. And a huge amplitude, enough to swallow a small island directly into the stomach. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. Even Brokey, who was lying on the ground, couldn't believe it. Just that the thunderbolt strike that Long Yu just cast, he was able to take down. Under the click, the body was briefly paralyzed. In front of him, he couldn't make a move at all for a moment or three to block an attack. Dodge. Only thing to do is to watch death come. Braki, be careful, I'm here to save you now. Dongli growled in a hurry. He was dueling Brokey for hundreds of years. However, facing this old partner in front of him, he is in deep crisis. The hatred of the past has long since vanished. What he desperately wanted to do now was to free Brokey. Good come. I've cut through iron and I've cut through steel, but I haven't cut through islands yet. Long Yu smiled warmly. The inexplicable speech made people stunned. In the next moment, there is no waiting for them to react. Dormant, Li Guang and Lu Ying in Long Yu's hands, as if they didn't want money, frantically poured into the words of Hidao. At the moment when the blade chirped cheerfully, and the dark armor color covered it with domineering, the ancient Hidao characters seemed to be transforming. Fell into Soren's eyes, causing a ridiculous thought to flash through his mind. Black knife. Zoro looked at Long Yu's hand, and his appearance completely subverted the image of Hidao. A word from Guina's mouth flashed in his mind. Every swordsman dreams of owning a black sword. Originally, for the young Zoro, he didn't know what the black knife was. At least, in his eyes, isn't the blade without black. However, with the growth of age, Guina passed away inexplicably. Let Zoro follow the footsteps of the black knife even more. Until the scene in front of him appeared, when Zoro's mind roared, an extremely absurd thought flashed. The black sword not only represents the famous sword, but also represents the realm of the swordsman. He finally understood why the young man in front of him, who was about the same age as him, gave him two expensive swords. That, because any blade that falls into his hands will transform into a famous sword. Chaotic thoughts flashed through Soren's mind. The moment Long Yu raised his head suddenly, his gaze was like a falcon, locked on the island-eating beast rushing towards the sky. At this moment, the fierce energy that had been madly accumulated in his body exploded like a dike burst. While stirring the sky and the circulating air, Long Yu moved. The black knife is 1 slash, the thunder and the shadow flow 10 smashes. Jung. The sound of the sword chirping is like the roar of a horned dragon, and it rises straight into the sky of the 9 heavens. Endless thunder light blooms, and it is crazily intertwined with the fierce and incomparable Lu Ying. Turned into a drill, straight into the void. One hit. Filu reminds you. Read 3 things to watch the latest chapter. Baidu search 99 Playmate find 99 Novel Network and LT. Please keep this paragraph for collection, otherwise the collection IP will be banned. And GT. Chapter 529. Reached a consensus. A thunder dragon soaring into the sky, it smashes everything in the sky with a posture like tearing apart the world. The violent air waves turned into a Category 12 hurricane and swept the entire island. In an instant, cold air rushed out of everyone's spine, giving the illusion of falling into the ice cellar. Everyone just felt that between heaven and earth, all the places within sight were occupied by dazzling golden light. Roar. The deafening scream and roar sounded without warning. With a tingling sensation like tearing the eardrum, it echoed in the heaven and earth for a long time and could not be dissipated. Before everyone could react, the hot liquid poured down like a downpour. The foul odor went straight into the nostrils. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. Without time to think about it, everyone rubbed their eyes frantically, looking up to see clearly what was happening in the sky. However, when he entered the scene, the dazzling golden light was dissipating, and it was as huge as a small island, with a body as large as 1,000 meters, and it was cut in 2 with a knife. A large amount of blood poured down in the neat fracture. Through the area of half of the body, the moment I saw the sky, my pupils contracted. Eye sockets were almost split. This knife not only severed the island-eating beast in 2. Sky was also split open. Boom! The 2 halves of the huge body, out of the control of the island-eater, bounced in the void powerlessly. Immediately, under the eyes of the public, it crashed onto the island. The kilometer-huge body gives the impression that it is like a huge mountain range, making the entire small garden vibrate violently. Looking at this shocking scene in front of me, and the bloody smell in the air, not only Sauron and the others, but even the 2 giants couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Over the years, they have also tried to challenge this huge island-eating beast. But don't talk about one-on-one situations. In the original book, Tori and Brokey are going to send Luffy and his party out of the small garden, displaying the combined technique to dominate the country, but also only flying. There is absolutely no way to kill them. Of course, there are also some of them, that can't withstand their full blow. However, in terms of the maximum value, Dongli and Brokey, who were able to achieve the greatest results, were only severely wounding the island-eating beast. To achieve the same record as Long Yu is completely a dream. If this shot falls on them, I am afraid that the end and the island-eating beast will not be much better. Is this knocking the mountain and shaking the tiger? A messy thought flashed in the minds of the 2 giants. He hurriedly looked at Long Yu and met his gaze. However, this time, Dongli and Brokey, the arrogance of giants, disappeared in an instant. Okay, the island-eating beast has also been killed, and the warm-up has been completed. Then, let's continue with the duel just now. Long Yu smiled and said, now, I'll give you 2 choices. 1, like the island-eating beast, it was split in half by me. 2. Join Fairy Tale, become my companion, I can give you the power to restore the glory of the giant Elbafu. For example, the high-level domineering Chi Sakura that I just cast. The deep voice, at this moment, seemed to be filled with a magical sound, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. All eyes were locked on the 2 giants. They eagerly wanted to know, compared with Long Yu's resolute behavior. Of the giant can still be raised. As the words dissipated, the huge situation suddenly fell into an inexplicable silence. Feeling the urgent gaze around him, Dongli couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. After looking at Brokey, they spoke in unison. I am Dongli Brokey, willing to join Fairy Tale. I hope the captain can give us the power to restore Elbaf, the glory of giants. The voices like a wave gathered together and reverberated on the entire island, and there was no way to disperse for a long time. Looking at the two legendary giants, a consensus was reached in an instant. Except for Sauron and the others, who were stunned, behind their eyes, even the face of the sand crocodile turned blue. He had thought that Long Yu would force the two giants to join Fairy Tale. It was as if he was persuaded to join him that day. However, Jean Crocodile never imagined that this process would end so quickly. What's more, looking at the expressions of these two giants, I was completely convinced. In particular, the slash that split the heavens and the earth just now gave Crocodile a kind of inexplicable heartbeat. Originally, in Crocodile's eyes, domineering is only a weak one, a small path to increase strength that will only be chosen when there is no powerful devil fruit ability. No matter how he cultivated, he would never be able to match his natural devil fruit. However, at the moment, Long Yu showed a combination of physical skills, domineering, and fruit power. Completely subverted Crocodile's cognition. That flew across the sky just now, it's him. Crocodile believed that he had obtained results by relying on the rustling fruit. Chapter 530. The Weak Eat the Strong. Apart from the fact that the corpse is not as big as the island eater, the so-called fate is no different. This scene was like watching the lights on a horse, and there was a hint of eagerness in Crocodile's arrogant heart. Uncle Dongli, you join him like this. Luffy couldn't help it and rushed out of the ruins. During this time, in order to kidnap two giants, they joined their queue, but they were both father and mother. In addition to spending a lot of lips and tongues, there are also a lot of food and drinks, etc. Those were all things that came through from Carp. However, it looked like it might be successful. I didn't even think of it, and killed a Cheng Yaojin in the middle. In just a few minutes, their efforts of several days were completely overturned and in vain. Haha, you kid, we didn't plan to get on your boat from the beginning. Dong Li sat down on the ground. Regarding Long Yu's attack just now, it didn't hurt their internal organs, but it also hurt their bones and muscles. When he spoke, his body still hurt. This is one of the reasons why they surrendered. In its heyday, it could end to Long Yu. Now that you are injured, you have to go up and do it. That would be death at all. You giants are really spineless. Looking at the two giants and directly denying his fantasy, Luffy stammered. For Luffy's words, Dongli obviously didn't take it to heart. He laughed with the giant sword in his hand, put it aside, raised his head and took a sip of wine, saying, "You are really a brat, no wonder your grandfather doesn't let you be a pirate. The crisis in this sea is not something you can imagine. The weak eat the strong, but the rule of the strong in this sea, if this time, the person you meet is not him. If he didn't show mercy, then you should be like the island-eating beast. You should be the two half-corpses, displayed in the small garden, and finally turned into a cup of Lois." Of Chang's words reverberated in the four corners, like a magic sound, and there was no way to dissipate it for a long time. It was like an invisible hammer, hitting their souls directly. Don't say it's Luffy, even Zoro, haha, it seems that you little guys also realize the seriousness of the problem. Brokey strode up, laughed, and sat down as well. Your strength is quite good, but I still want to persuade one or two. This sea is not suitable for you for the time being. If you can, I hope that you will be able to contact your grandfather after leaving the small garden and rush into the great sailing. Dao, it's still too reluctant for you now. What's more, Dongli and I, as giants, the most respected are the strong, the head of Laxus, but with strength, we have convinced the giants. Having said that, Brokey glanced at the island eater with lingering fears and continued. What's more, what he said is not wrong. As the strongest giant warriors 100 years ago, not only did we not think about protecting Elbaf, but we hid here willfully to engage in the so-called ignorant duel, which led to Elbaf is destroyed, and our giants are out of glory. We need strength to restore the glory of the giant Elbaf, but we, who are out of touch with the history of 100 years, need a guide, otherwise we will only take more detours. The rolling voices, like thunder, echoed in this world. Regardless of whether it was Zoro or Sanji, even Crocodile's face was very embarrassing. Before they set foot in the sea, they were still pretentious with their strength. But after seeing the strength of Long Yu with his own eyes, this is undoubtedly the ruthless contrast between the fluorescent light and the bright moon. Especially Crocodile, who not long ago was hiding in Alabasta as a hero. Just like these two legendary giants. Okay, you have suffered a lot, so let's get some treatment first. Long Yu's right hand caught it in the air, and the scepter instantly fell into his hand. Of Laxus and Bone King are more than 60% realistic, so some power and means can still be borrowed. Tier 4 Magic, Group Healing. Bang! With the scepter in his hand, he stomped on the ground, and the huge magic power was vented, and the magic circle was instantly built. Healing light and rain fell from the sky, giving people a pleasant feeling that the cells of the whole body are breathing. The tingling sensation that had spread all over the body receded quickly. Haha, I didn't expect our new captain to have such a strange power. Dong Li laughed heartily. Rocky, it seems that our choice this time is not wrong. Yes, we are the strongest giants in Elbaf, of course we will not choose the wrong one. Brokey laughed too. For a while, the rolling laughter was like a muffled thunder, and it made people's ears tingle. Long Yu reluctantly dug out the earwax that had rolled out from the shock, thinking about whether to control the giant's volume in the future. The next moment, the call of the phone bug rang suddenly. Chapter 531, New Instructor. Mosamoxi, Teacher, I'm Bastius. Bastiu Longyu's brows couldn't help but twitch. He remembered that Bastius was dealing with the mess in Alabasta. He is also the only person in his team who does not know his dual identity. Now that I suddenly came to the door, is it because I saw through my identity? A messy thought flashed in my mind. Long Yu made a gesture to Dongli and Brokey to silence, and then connected to the phone bug. Bastiu, I'm Laxus, is there anything important? Teacher, I'm sorry for disturbing you at this time. It's just that when I met Mr. Carp just now, he said that the person you recommended seemed to slip away under Mr. Carp's eyes to seek revenge on you. Please be merciful if you meet him. Inside the phone bug, Bastius' hurried voice could be heard. Long Yu raised his brows, looked at the stiff-looking Zoro and said, Tell Mr. Garp, I have caught him, and I will send it to him later. What? Where did those boys really go? I have to abolish him today. Carp's voice came suddenly. In this sudden scene, even Sanji and Zoro couldn't help but slap their wrists, and the things they were holding were scattered all over the floor. Seeing them shaking their heads desperately, it was obvious that they cast a shadow on Cap's iron fist. Long Yu rolled their eyes at them and said, Mr. Garp, calm down, man, I'll send it to you. But if they don't want to, there's nothing I can do. Hearing these words, Zoro and the others were instantly relieved. Laxus you. Carp gasped for a moment. However, after a short pause, a sentence came out that caught Long Yu off guard. Boy, I heard that both Warring States and Zephyr praised you for training newcomers. You have a set of theories. Why don't you help the old man and train these little devils? If the effect is good, you may be able to get rid of Zephyr's old face. Let me teach them that. Long Yu was stunned and looked at the Zoro. This is not the rhythm of being a nanny. Teacher, you can consider Mr. Yi's proposal. Teacher Zephyr and the Warring States Marshal have already made a decision. As long as the teacher nods, they are willing to let the teacher become the new instructor of the naval boot camp. Bastius said urgently. The decision of the Warring States period and Zephyr was unexpected. Originally, I just thought that the instant flow level system and the use of the 6th-style commentary would be able to stir up a little, Navy headquarters. Give him for later. Create a turbulent point in the world and provide a leverage. I never thought that Warring States and Zephyr would also pay attention. It even threw out the olive branch of the instructors of the Navy boot camp. This is a position comparable to a rear admiral or even a lieutenant admiral. After all, it is not a seasoned person who can teach in a naval boot camp. Convince a group of unruly newcomers, at least the fist is big enough. Zephyr can become the chief instructor, making all the newcomers, and even the current Navy generals in awe. That is also the halo of his former general. What's more, the Navy boot camp is the cradle of new recruits, the cradle of the Navy headquarters, in exchange for blood. Now, a person who doesn't know the origin has been given an exceptional position as an instructor. This is enough to prove that the 6-type application method obtained in the system, the attraction is far beyond his cognition. Fast you, don't get in the way of the old man's words. Carp let out a cry, apparently snatching the phone bug over. You give me a good training on these guys along the way. The old man got an emergency order to assist the Akainu guy and encircle Walder. As long as you let my grandson improve his strength, he will go to the Navy headquarters later, the old man will cover you. Abandon this sentence, the phone worm another paragraph immediately. Was hung up. This kind of energy that comes and goes in the rain is really hard to turn around. However, the only thing that made Long Yu care about was that the Navy began to encircle Wald. In his memory, in order to prove his strength, Wald in the original book chose to use Chiwahai as a meat shield. Pity that in the end, only Hancock's 2 sisters were obtained, and the so-called plan was in vain in the end. Now the timeline, because of the appearance of Long Yu, is obviously 2 years ahead of schedule. It is still unknown to what level Wald's counterattack will evolve. However, thinking of when he was in the Chambord Islands, Hancock did not hesitate to lead the 9 snake pirates to help for his own safety. Long Yu still kept his mind and looked for opportunities to contact Hancock. Captain, are you in a hurry? Dongli raised his head and took a sip of spirits before saying, we can set sail at any time. However, the bodies of our giants are relatively large. Judging from the boats you are on, captains, they shouldn't be able to carry us. I'm afraid it will take some time to build a raft. As the strongest among the giants, he may not be the tallest being in One Piece. However, in terms of height, it also reaches 20 meters. Chapter 532, Teacher Laxus, please guide me to practice domineering together. According to what Long Yu was carrying, the 10-meter-long warship was probably not strong enough for them to turn over, so it smashed and sank directly. Captain, if you are really in a hurry, you can leave us a life card. You set sail first, and we will follow later. Roki took a bite of the roast and immediately suggested. After all, this is a great waterway, and the weather is even more unpredictable. To build a huge raft that can withstand wind and rain is not something that can be done in a day or two. Facing Broki's suggestion, Long Yu frowned slightly, suddenly thinking of a solution that would best of both worlds. He is indeed incapable of building such a large ship for the time being. However, in my memory, there are ready-made big ships. How long does it take you to make the simplest raft? Long Yu returned to the divine way. Easiest. Dongli raised his brows and said, about 7 or 8 days. Well, at least we have to consider the dangers at sea. For giants, they have the physical advantage. However, once you get to the sea, no matter what is a giant or an ordinary person, if there is no ship, there is only one dead end. After all, not everyone is Rayleigh's old pervert, able to swim across the entire sea without wind. 7 days. Long Yu raised his brows and said, then you build a raft first, and I'll collect information first. At the same time, during this period of time, I will guide you, the use of your 2-color domineering. With your qualifications, it should not be difficult to master. Armed and domineering Brokey and Dongli, their eyes suddenly lit up. As a giant, I still remember the scene of being hit by Long Yu just now. Especially the domineering use of the jet black armed color. Even they feel awkward. What's more, in the duel of hundreds of years, they have already found themselves at the bottleneck. If you can take advantage of the two-color domineering practice, you can raise your strength to a level. It will become easier to restore the former glory for the giant family of Elbaf. Teacher Laxus, please guide me to practice domineering together. A cold voice suddenly sounded. Seeing that Zoro fell to the ground, kneeling and bowing to the ground, Lian Long was surprised. As the original pirate hunter, Roroya Zoro, one of the three masters of the Straw Hat Pirates. Long Yu knew how stubborn he was. When he was young, he was able to insist on the three swordsmanship that others laughed at, and challenged Guina thousands of times. This kind of feat is not a normal person can. However, looking around the entire Straw Hat, Zoro is undoubtedly the crew with the most overall view. Faced with the lack of their own strength, there is also a heart that quickly becomes stronger. However, he was willing to ask the enemy, Mahawk, the eagle eye of Shichibukai. Now Long Yu showed that the black knife he had longed for had undoubtedly moved Soren's heart to become stronger. Sauron, you promised to be my crewman. Luffy exploded all of a sudden. Rarely escaped under Garp's hands and abducted 3 people to serve as temporary crew members. If Long Yu was dug up, then for Luffy, it would be difficult for anyone to become blind and fall in love with him in the future. Luffy, I'm apprentice, not to get on the boat. Zoro said in a low voice. If you don't want to, the next time you are beaten up by your grandfather, I hope you can also apprentice. Even the admiral and the instructor personally invited. I believe that Teacher Laxus will never let us down. Looking at Zoro with a dignified expression, Long Yu felt helpless. This step on the horse is pushing him to a dead end. However, when I think of it, among the supernovae in the future, there will be people who have been trained by themselves. Perhaps, it can also cause turmoil in the world. You green algae head, are you planning to get rid of us? Sanji took a deep breath of his cigarette and said, count me in. Also count me, my uncle Usopp, but I have an amazing talent. Ah, you all signed up, then I can't be left behind and count me. Seeing that a group of little fans were captured at once. Daz, who was standing behind Crocodile, also stopped talking. Daz, do you want to sign up? Long Yu looked at Daz with interest. Originally, he, who was planning to stand firm, suddenly became discouraged and said, Mr. Laxus, count me in. Lord Crocodile, are you coming too? During this period of time, Long Yu had many methods, but Daz was vividly remembered. Now, even the Marshal of the Warring States period of the Navy Headquarters, ZFA, the chief instructor of the recruits, has personally committed himself and invited Long Yu to become the Navy recruit instructor. This is enough to prove that his teaching method is definitely the first class in the sea. Daz knew that he was older than Long Yu, but he still knew clearly the principle of being the best. In particular, I have personally witnessed the behind-the-scenes scene of Long Yu's high-level domineering Chisakura, which completely abused the 2 giants. It also piqued his competitive spirit. I don't need it anymore. Crocodile glanced at Luffy and the others, the corners of his eyes moved slightly, then turned and left. Chapter 533, Uncontrollable. For him, as one of the dignified Chiwahai in the past, the long-established great pirate must learn the 2-color domineering together with a group of little kids. Once this kind of thing spreads out, he can't afford to lose his old face. Lord Crocodile. Daz hesitated. However, before the words were finished, Crocodile turned into yellow sand and disappeared from sight. Haha, this kid looks like he likes face more than our 2 old guys. After taking a sip of wine, Dongli laughed heartily. However, if I can, I really want to know what surprises the captain can give us when we set sail. In the small garden, separated by a blank period of 100 years, they don't know much about the people and things in the outside world. It's just that under the battle with Long Yu, no matter what was combat power or combat skills, it subverted their cognition. This undoubtedly gives the two giants some hope for breakthroughs. For Dongli and Brokey, who looked hopeful, Long Yu reluctantly touched the tip of his nose, and he was also full of expectations. In the original work, there are very few scenes given to giants. However, according to one of the four emperors, one of the pirates, Charlotte Lingling, as long as you get the alliance support of the giants, you will be able to defeat Whitebeard, Kaido, and the rest of the three forces of the four emperors. The real king on this sea. These words alone are enough to prove that Elbaf, the hometown of giants, was destroyed by Charlotte Lingling. But the nation of giants still exists, and at the same time has a force too powerful to ignore. Now Long Yu has recruited two legendary giants, under the premise that they have already learned the skills of giants to dominate the country. If you use domineering and Liu Ying, your strength will definitely jump several levels. At that time, it is still a big killer if it is not good. Messy thoughts flashed in Long Yu's mind, and said, since you all want to learn, then in the next 7 days, I will try my best to teach you the knowledge of domineering. As for how much you can learn, that's all. It depends on personal understanding. Now, go to rest first, I still have something to deal with. After leaving these words, Long Yu turned into a thunderlight and swept away violently towards the mouth of the sea. Other hand, within the Navy headquarters. The huge discussion hall was already full of figures, and the first one was the Marshal Warring States. Bang! The door was directly pulled open, and 3 burly bodies came in through the door. Seeing the appearance of the 3 generals, the expressions of the admirals present could not help but change slightly. They knew very well that during this time, due to the escape of the skeleton demon, the advance of the city grand prison, a large number of prisoners escaped. The 3 generals all left their headquarters and went to various sea areas to capture fugitives. The 3 strongest forces in the Navy took action, and the good news came back one after another, and many big pirates were sent back to the big prison in the city. However, there are also many pirates with illustrious names who cannot be arrested. The legendary pirate, the Golden Lion Shiki, who broke through the Chanda prison for the first time and successfully escaped from prison decades ago. You can't even control your whereabouts. Okay, since everyone is here, then I'll stop talking nonsense. Sengoku glanced at Akainu 3 and went straight to the topic. During this time, you should also know that in the 6th floor of the advanced city, the big pirate who escaped from prison, the world destroyer Bondewald, is attacking the Tianlong people and the naval branch. Even the pirates are not released. Past. It can be said that it is a mad dog. Whoever catches and bites whoever is caught. He was lawless 30 years ago. Now after getting out of trouble, he joins up with the remnants, and what he does is even crazier. Having said that, Sengoku looked at the crane, who was the Navy's chief staff officer, instantly understood, picked up the projection phone in his hand and pressed it, immediately. Switch out. During this time, all kinds of sabotage from Walder. Marine branch of the Navy, a merchant ship using heavenly gold. Outside the Judiciary Island, intercept pirate prisoners, pursue the Tianlong people, etc. For a time, let the admiral in the field take a breath of cold air. Especially those lieutenant generals directly under the subdivision were even more pale, obviously leaving bad memories. It has been 15 days since Walder escaped from the hands of the General Qingzi, 1515. He shot 12 times, and each time caused a large number of casualties. In order to make you more aware of the dangers of world destroyers, I'll repeat the key reasons why we succeeded in arresting him 30 years ago. Crane glanced at Akainu and said in a deep voice. 30 years ago, we were able to take down this mad dog, not only because he challenged the justice of our naval headquarters, but also because he chilled the hearts of the pirates. Indirectly contributed to the alliance between the Navy and the pirates, pushing him to a dead end. So, this time, we launched the Chiwahai recruitment order. Maybe many of you will be dissatisfied, but for the justice of the Navy and the tranquility of this sea, we must first do this, is to subdue this mad dog of the sea. Please remember, he was advancing on the 6th floor of the city, and the frozen island he received was not comparable to the golden lion Shiji, because he is a lunatic, so when the decisive battle is over, no matter what. As long as you don't cross the cooperation agreement, you must not take action against them, or you will destroy this time of encirclement and suppression, then our Navy will once again become a laughingstock. Chapter 534. How much hatred, how much hatred. The awe-inspiring voice echoed in the huge discussion hall, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. The expressions of the admirals changed. Has been decades since the first battle that day. Looking at them, the slightly older lieutenant generals are only about 50 years old. In the First World War at that time, it was just a newcomer's existence, not to mention participating in the war, and even had no chance to play soy sauce. The huge conference hall fell into a dead silence. Famous big pirate decades ago, the aged lieutenant general, like a newcomer, couldn't help but feel uneasy. Feeling the change in the atmosphere in the field, Akainu snorted coldly and said, "A product of the old era, under the trend of the times after 30 years, it is just a broken gear. Don't forget, the current Navy headquarters is not. 30 years can be compared, he drags a lingering body, can it be compared with our Navy headquarters that is constantly changing blood? If you are afraid, you can quit now, go back to the naval boot camp, and let the new naval recruit instructors invited by our marshal to guide 1 or 2 well, and then come back to take up the post." The rolling voice caused the expressions of many admirals in the field to change slightly. Akainu's words were a bit too mean. However, the amount of information contained is also not small. At least, in their eyes, they all secretly kept an eye on who the new recruits from the Warring States period were. When the Warring States heard the words, he sighed faintly and said, "Akainu, he said these words just to let them understand that you don't need to be serious about the risks of this battle. As for Laxus, it's Zepha, he, and I, the recruits who were recruited from outside after discussing together. You don't need to worry about the conflict not long ago." Thinking of the phone call not long ago, Akainu's attitude, Sengoku was also mentally prepared. Just that he never thought that after a few days, Akainu would choose to erupt in such a place. How much hatred is this? How much hatred? I support the proposal of the Warring States Marshal. For Laxus, I met him in Rogue Town. He is a rare physique and domineering powerhouse. The ability of the natural system of Thunder Fruit, if it can be used by our naval headquarters, it means that we may have the 4th major force in the future. Qingji suddenly spoke up. These words fell, the atmosphere in the field obviously reached a freezing point. Many people know that Akainu and Qingji's tempers are a bit off. It's just that I never thought that Qingji would say such words at such a juncture. The Fourth World War's face sank, and suddenly stood up. Blazing waves of air surged out of his body. The gloomy eyes suddenly turned, locked on Qingji's body, and said word by word. "Qingji, do you mean that I am avenging my personal revenge? Don't forget, Walter slipped under your nose. Is it?" And met Akainu's gaze and said, "If you have to say that, that fellow Red Earl, have you caught it?" "You!" Akainu roared, dormant, and the fruit ability in the body was about to explode like a frenzy. "Enough, you two don't come here, you want to fight, and then go to other places." Warring States shouted in a cold voice. "If you have this kind of energy, let me catch the escaped pirates, and the skeleton demon. I've been sitting in this position for a while now, I have something to say, just sit up, if anyone is here, don't blame me for letting Carp teach you a good lesson. Drop the gate and release Garp." Hearing Sengoku's astonishing words, the atmosphere in the room suddenly froze. It can be said. Many people in the audience also grew up under Carp's eyelids. He also worked with his subordinates. After all, as a naval hero, but a newcomer, a longing existence. But it is precisely because of this reason that many people have been subjected to Carp's iron fist of love. That is even the sharp cone of the green pepper, which can bend the existence. Yo-Yo, Marshal of the Warring States period, you don't play cards according to common sense, but Mr. Garp, why haven't you been here recently? Kizaru's obscene voice sounded round the field at the right time. Could it be that Mr. Garp is not going to participate in this mission? Hearing these words, the young general's presence suddenly regained their spirits. As a hero of the Navy, there is an existence that chases the pirate King Roger in the sea. It can be said that no matter how much Garp hangs around, it is the existence they look forward to. Of course, if you know which battle is in the Valley of the Gods, then Garp is even more reassured. Don't worry, I have asked Garp to come back as soon as possible. 10 days later, we will encircle and suppress Walder in the first half of the Great Waterway. I hope you don't fall off the chain at that time. Sengoku glanced at Akainu and Chingzi, and said in a deep voice. Next, Crane, assign your staff. Those words, Zangwo rubbed his swollen head and left quickly. 7 days later, the small garden. When the naval headquarters was in full swing, the siege event was being carried out. Long Yu and his party did not fall off the schedule. That was more than 70 meters long, like an aircraft carrier, had already been suspended above the estuary. 2 giant bodies walked out slowly, with weapons worn on their backs that had worn away rust. The circulating cold light exudes a smell that penetrates the soul. As for Long Yu and his party, they had already boarded the pirate ship where Nami and Dusky were staying. When Sauron saw Dusky for the first time, he also mistakenly thought it was Dusky. However, no matter. It is a follow-up challenge, or a domineering use. For this period of time, she followed Long Yu and received precise training, and she directly abused Sauron. In 7 days, I lost 30 times. This falls in the mouth of Sanji, and riding a horse is a shame for a man. Of course, according to Sanji, seeing the beautiful women on board, he is more willing to be ashamed of being bullied by women. Mosamoxi, little brother, I'm Shachi. The voice of the phone bug rang suddenly. Long Yu glanced at it, closed his eyes and calmly, standing at the mouth of the sea, Dongli and Brokey, took out the phone bug with his backhand. I'm Laxus, Miss Shachi, do you have any information? 7 days ago, after he returned to the pirate ship, he contacted Nico Robin, who used to be in charge of the Baroque Work Club. Pity that as soon as the news of the death of Shichibuhai Crocodile was announced, the Baroque Work Club immediately fell and scattered. Even Nico Robin couldn't get in touch with the billions of elders and others, let alone use the intelligence network that used to cover the first half of the Great Waterway to find information on the Navy and Walder. At the end, Long Yu remembered that in the Chambord Islands, the proprietor's wife, Shachi, specialized in selling intelligence information. Brother Laxus, it seems that you are doing something unknown again. I heard that even the Navy invited you to join the Navy as a new instructor, and you killed Krosidal of the 7 Wuhai. During this time, you were Red Man on the sea. Shachi said with a teasing smile. These words made Crocodile, who was standing not far from the deck of the ship, twitch in his cheeks. Although he died once, but now he is clearly alive, but is discussed by others as a dead person. This is a humiliation. Chapter 535, Black Knife, Dustless Slash. Sister Shachi, you really hold me high. Long Yu glanced at it, and the ashen-faced crocodile said, this time, I was just a fluke. As for the Navy headquarters, it was blind and asked me to be an instructor, but you will not forget about my request, Sister Shachi. Bar. 7 days ago, he learned from Garp's mouth that Bondwald, the world destroyer, was besieged by the Navy headquarters. Unfortunately, there is no way to find the exact trace information. It's been 7 days now, and I don't know if Wald was ambushed by the Navy. Then, the coveted Gulosik, which Long Yu coveted, was a waste. It seems that the little brother has a big plan. Shachi took a long sigh of smoke. However, this time you are lucky. I got important information just now. 3 days later, the Navy headquarters and Chihuahua joined forces to conduct a war against Wald in the first half of the Great Waterway, in the waters of Wales. Encirclement. If you have any ideas, I advise you to do it early. I think the Navy headquarters is determined to win this time. Long Yu raised his brows in the Wells Sea area. He remembered that this sea area was not too far from Alabasta. Captain, I have seen this area in the nautical chart provided by Alabasta. Nami spoke suddenly. It seems that it only takes 2.5 days from the small garden. I will record the hour hand here. Looking at the recording hour hand in Nami's hand, Long Yu couldn't help laughing, intending to reach out and rub Nami's head. However, as soon as he reached out halfway, his brows couldn't help frowning. Bang! The sound of breaking water came from the sea. Soon I saw a black shadow in the outer sea, and the water broke and rushed out. The huge body of tens of meters attacked in a rolling posture, and the sea water it brought up was like a torrential rain. This is an island eater. Nami screamed in surprise. 7 days ago, the island-eating beast with a body length of 1,000 meters jumped from a high altitude, but she almost lost her control. Shot at the critical moment, I'm afraid she would have been frightened already. HMPH, isn't it just a fish that slipped through the net? Get out of here. A disdainful snort spit out in Crocodile's mouth. Shachi's remarks just now made him angry for a long time. Especially during this time, looking at those little devils. Every day shouting to learn two-color domineering. He could only stare at him, this kind of suffocation, all of which was infused into self-exploration by Chloe. However, this emotional self-exploration undoubtedly makes this road narrower and narrower. And, 7 days passed, and Kerr could only stare at each other in addition to staring, and he had already touched the threshold. Who usually participates in high-level assassination missions in the Baroque Work Club, seemed to have some eyebrows a few days ago. Contrary, as the past. He was the eldest, and even had the strength to suckle, and he was still at a loss. Lord Crocodile, be careful. Daz roared loudly. Let the absent crocodile react suddenly. First to see, is a familiar figure. The muscles of both arms suddenly tensed and bulged, the blades spit out, and the black and ink-like armament color spread on the arm, and finally formed a shallow layer of domineering. Looking at the attacking, dozens of meters of island-eating beasts, Daz didn't hesitate at all, raised his hand and slashed down. Black knife clean cut. The black light flashed vertically, swiftly swept past like a thunderbolt. The speed was so fast that the island eater couldn't react at all. Directly cut the huge body of dozens of meters in two. Bang! The broken corpse was smashed on the sea surface, and the blood splattered and splattered under the big canopy, making the whole sea area suddenly full of blood. Lord Crocodile, are you all right? Daz fell to Crocodile's side. On his arms gave Crocodile an inexplicable heart-piercing feeling. This is his former little brother. Now he has surpassed him, and he has also controlled the domineering of the armed color. Crocodile, I and I were just barely able to display the arrogance of armed color just yesterday. Daz noticed Crocodile's gaze and quickly explained. For Daz, he never thought that according to Long Yu's training method, he could so quickly awaken the domineering arrogance lurking in his body. If this method, once spread, will be crazy for any force. However, this method is called a shortcut by Long Yu, and the degree of danger is also not small. If you don't have a tenacious will and a lot of combat experience, I'm afraid you will become an idiot if you haven't succeeded. It can be said that this is a 9-death approach. Shut up, a mere island-eating beast, do you think it can hurt me? Crocodile roared. The next moment, when he entered the scene, his pupils contracted suddenly. The distant sea area, a huge black shadow appeared quickly, and the surrounding sea water seemed to be stirred by an invisible big hand. A pair of eyes that were as scarlet as the moon quickly lit up. That feeling is enough to penetrate the soul. If we say that the island-eating beast just now is several tens of meters, then the current island-eating beasts can be described as 10,000 meters. They are waiting for it. Crocodile's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly looked at the two giants behind him. It's finally here. Dongli and Brokey suddenly opened their eyes. Chapter 536, Can't Hold Back. The languid breath that had been there was gone in an instant. At this moment, the two of them seemed to return to the giants of the sea like 100 years ago. Roar! A low roar, bursting like thunder. The 10,000-meter island-eating beast originally lurking in the sea, a pair of scarlet eyes, instantly locked on Long Yu and others. Of the sea who has been entrenched in the small garden for a long time, he was beheaded by Long Yu not long ago, but he is only a junior. It is the 10,000-meter island-eating beast that has been lurking and living for a long time in front of me, and it really makes the merchant ships and even the pirates feel nightmares. One bite, it can swallow a small island, which is its true attitude. Boom! Huge body, turned out directly in the sea. The 10,000-meter posture gives people a feeling of covering the sky and the sun. The rolled-up sea water gives people a gesture like a raging tide. That feeling was like a 12-level tsunami, rolling over in the sea in the distance. It can be said that if this blow, once it hits directly, is waiting for them, not to mention the ship is destroyed, that even this small garden will be crumbled. Oh my God, is this the island-eating beast? Captain, hurry up and think of a way. Nami's feet and belly are chattering. However, if Long Yu told her that there was a large amount of gold in the stomach of this island-eating beast, it would be another story. Don't worry, watch the show. Long Yu patted Nami on the shoulder and smiled genially. Nami was stunned while watching the play, and now she can't wait to pass out happily in a coma. At least this scene is not beautiful. A little careless, waiting for them, but swallowed. Crocodile's complexion suddenly became difficult to look at. In his eyes, Long Yu had already killed the largest island-eating beast. To see, you will reach the sky by tens of meters, or even 100 meters. Case of 1,000-meter island-eating beast, Crocodile is also confident that he can kill it in one blow. However, the head in front of him is close to 10,000 meters, reminding the existence of a huge island. If you let him kill, I am afraid there is a kind of feeling, mayfly. He is a self-confessed devil fruit with a powerful nature, but when the opponent's size reaches a certain level, his skills become, not important. At least, at this moment, Dal has no confidence in his heart. When he saw that Long Yu was indifferent, his nerves tightened even more. He never imagined that in the face of such a huge island-eating beast, Long Yu would put his chips on the two giants. It can be said that at this moment Long Yu seems to be verifying whether his eyes are old. Roar! The 10,000-meter island-eating beast was the first to lose his breath. When the roar sounded again, the huge body moved. At the moment when the huge wave suddenly overturned, the body of 10,000 meters, like a huge sharp blade, directly tore the sea open. The monstrous waves brought up, before the impact came, the entire estuary shook violently. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. Urgent gaze, when swept across Long Yu's body, suddenly locked on the bodies of the two giants. Go! The violent drink like thunder gushed out from Dongli's mouth. With a deafening stance, it rolled and dispersed. Who had already held his breath for a long time, responded instantly. As the strongest partners in the past, their tacit understanding and actions can be called synchronization. Bang! Step out in one step. The whole small garden seems to be in an earthquake. Two huge bodies are shaking the earth. The dark and inky armed color is domineering, spreading rapidly over the two of them. The steel-like color made the originally sharp-edged aura suddenly climb to the extreme. Coupled with the height of dozens of meters, under the flickering sunlight, it stands like a huge iron tower. Facing so many gazes, Dongli and Brokey didn't show any fancy, their hands and fingers suddenly clenched their weapons. The domineering aura of armament wrapped around his body turned into a wave in the next moment, pouring into the weapon. Formed a swirl like a sakura. The pitch-black blade and the huge aura that circulated were crazily compressed on the weapon by Dongli and Brokey. was a stagnation in the air circulating around. Dongli and Brocky raised their heads abruptly, their eyes like falcons, instantly locked on the 10,000-meter island-eating beast that was attacking from the sky. There is no trace of fancy, 10 fingers are tense, hands and even the muscles of the whole body are bulging like a rock. The next moment, with the right foot as the fulcrum, the iron tower-like body suddenly turned and started to rise under the sound of crackling bones. Unparalleled Sakura domination of the country. Bang! With one blow, the movements of the two giants are almost synchronized. The entire space, in an instant, seemed to be penetrated. The jet-black airwave was like a furious wave, tearing apart the space and bursting out. Wherever he passed, the air stirred huge ripples, and the sea along the way seemed to be torn apart by an invisible big hand. Chapter 537, Ban Men Get Axe. At this moment, it feels like the end of the day. Roar! The huge body of the island-eating beast suddenly stagnates. Looking at the rapidly expanding attack in the pupil, the huge body of 10,000 meters, under the frantic squirming, has to dodge first. It is simply impossible. Only thing that can be done is to watch the pitch-black airflow like a savage dragon across the sky. With a smashing posture, it is directly enlarged in the pupil. Boom! A dull thunderous roar exploded. Under the impact of huge air waves, large swaths of seawater were set off, forming a monstrous torrential rain. The pitch-black slash, with a tenacious posture, stabbed its head on the chest and abdomen of the island-eating beast. The snow-white belly, just supported a little, was smashed into pieces in the next moment. The scarlet blood water splashed like a wave, and a large piece of flesh and blood collapsed between the sky and the earth. The 10,000-meter island-eating beast smashed its head on the sea with a wailing roar. The torn sea lost its support and collided like two invisible hands. The huge body of the 10,000-meter island-eating beast was directly submerged. The huge sea surface, the water waves were surging, and the scarlet blood water lingered for a moment or three. A pungent bloody smell filled the air. Looking at the large mess in front of them, the people present couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. He looked at the two giants in disbelief. They have long known that giants have extraordinary strength. However, I didn't even think of it, after using the high-level armament color-domineering Air Sakura. Of Dongli and Broki can directly kill the huge island-eating beast. If the shot fell on them, or in the small garden, the consequences are simply terrifying. The wrath of giants can destroy the country. This is no joke. Haha, the feeling of fighting is really cool, such a person's heroic appearance. Dongli laughed loudly and put the weapon directly on his shoulder. Looking back, after living on the upper island, I rolled over and sat on the raft. HMPH, if it wasn't for the captain's personal guidance, you old fellow would have been cowardly facing this island-eating beast that has been entrenched for 100 years. Broki gave him a disdainful look. They have fought decisively for hundreds of years, but they also hunt for food. I also know a little about this island-eating beast that is entrenched in the sea and intends to hunt giants. Also had a fight with it, but unfortunately it never came to fruition. It was not until 100 years later, after mastering the high-level domineering Lu Ying, that it was able to kill it in one blow. However, it is precisely because of this reason that they clearly understand the power of this two-color domineering. Hee, you can display such a domineering. It's not. I can do it with my guidance alone. Long Yu laughed dryly. Your rich combat experience and hundreds of years of duels have allowed you to maintain your physical fitness to a peak state, and you can only achieve this level with a lot of accumulation. The last crisis has also been eliminated. It is not too early, and we should go to sea. For Tori and Brocky, this is the point. Long Yu was not surprised. After all, this was the strongest giant who had been rewarded with a reward of over 100 million 100 years ago. The strength and means possessed are completely unmatched by ordinary giants. Even the current giant rookie, Helding, is not as good as 5 or 6/10 of him. Uncle Dongli, Uncle Broki, do you want to join our Straw Hat Pirates? That blow just now was so cool. Luffy jumped onto Tori's shoulder at once. Both eyes were glowing with fiery starlight. For Luffy, the first condition for what can be brought on board is to be different. Luffy, the teacher is watching. You dare to dig the crew in public, be careful I cut you. Zoro bit back and bit the words of Hidao. Of Gito and Shuizuo in their hands showed a trace of dark-armed domineering, trying their best to spread to the blade. Pity that this domineering just spread a few centimeters, and it was obvious that he was exhausted and directly misfired. In the end, before the eyes of the public, it collapsed between heaven and earth. Cut, you green algae head, don't get an axe here. Sanji gave him a disdainful look, and immediately let out a strange cry. Nami-san, leave this kind of heavy lifting to me. Teacher, I don't seem to understand domineering. I want to stay on this ship as a trainee crew for life. You bastard, I have to hack you to death. That suddenly became noisy. Long Yu reluctantly touched the tip of his nose. For him, the current guidance is entirely to bring the world into turmoil faster. Only by doing so can he better regain his power. What's more, it's nice to be lively. Okay, let's all set sail and head to the waters of Wales. Long Yu retracted his thoughts and turned around to give an order. However, the first thing that came into view was an unexpected figure. Long Yu, I want to learn two-color domineering. Crocodile stood in front of Long Yu. Looking at this young man who was a little younger than himself, this kind of asking for advice almost suffocated him to death. If the two giants didn't kill the island-eating beasts strongly, he might still insist on his stubbornness. Chapter 538, I want to fight with you. However, the blow just now that was like destroying the sky and destroying the earth not only killed the island-eating beast, but also shattered the last self-esteem and stubbornness in his heart. The face of this blow, Crocodile believed that even with the glory of Shichibukai, he would not be able to retreat. Now think about it, if the target of this hit is yourself. The spine is still chilling. Haha, you stubborn brat, are you finally convinced? Dong Li laughed uncontrollably. You should first call the captain a teacher. Brokey and I add up, but we are more than 300 years old, so much older than you. In order to become stronger, we have not put our face aside. The strong, but there is no distinction between before and after, but you remember. Rolling laughter, mixed with a sense of preaching. If it was normal, Crocodile would have been violent, fat-beating. However, what Dong Li said this time was not wrong. Long Yu's teaching achievements are obvious to all. What's more, the young man in front of him is a talent that even the Warring States Marshal of the Navy headquarters and the new recruit chief instructor ZFA liked. Watching other people improve rapidly step by step, and pretending that he is full of unimportant things, that is his loss. Hee, no need, you won't be treated differently for the sake of effectiveness. The most important thing is that you are willing. Long Yu patted Crocodile on the shoulder. Fairy tale, but it's not important to drag the oil bottle. Dusky, next you guide him to the basics. Dusky was stunned for a moment. Long time, in her eyes, Chiwahai was an unattainable existence. Usually encountered in the sea, but also to hide and prey, do not be stared at. Never thought that one day I would guide Chiwahai. However, seeing that Long Yu's face was correct, Dasichi hesitated, but nodded in agreement. Faced with this decision, Crocodile was a little surprised, however, breaking his own limitations and asking Long Yu to know the practice of two-color domineering is enough to say that he also sacrificed his face. What's more, compared with those hairy boys from Sauron, Dusky is undoubtedly a better choice. Haha, Captain, it seems that you really have a way of regaining people's hearts. Dong Li laughed loudly, took a sip of wine into his mouth, and said, however, Captain, didn't you say that our giant family has also produced some good seedlings? It's the Urals. That kid, it's still John. Dong Li, have you forgotten that there is another kid named Longs? Brokey laughed and agreed. Seeing these two voices twitching, the two giants burst into deafening laughter. Long Yu reluctantly took out his cochlea and said, "The John and Longs you mentioned, if I guess correctly, they should be the two lieutenant generals of the Navy headquarters now. The former naval headquarters, but through the hands of the nun Carmelite, secretly sold many giants to make up for the strength of the Navy. Among them, there are even a few giants who have entered the middle and high level of the Navy. Oh, they turned out to be members of the Navy, so we pirates have no heirs." Dong Li frowned involuntarily. Leaving the time of the 100th century does not mean that the younger generation is not good for the Navy. However, 100 years ago, their giant pirates, but in Elbaf, became a well-known legend. In this sea, it is also very famous. If suddenly there are no giants as pirates now, then, have the giant soldier pirates become a disgrace? Hee, don't worry, I remember a giant named Helding, who should have formed a new giant soldier pirate to enter the sea. As for the specific situation, I don't know. Long Yu touched the tip of his nose, thinking of Helding, who was added to the Straw Hat ship in the original book. Helding is that, the kid who always wears a bullhorn hat. When we left the port for the last time, that guy haunted us and insisted on becoming the strongest pirate and surpassing us. Brokey froze for a moment, then laughed. However, it soon attracted Dong Li's rolling eyes. "That's Hersey, is your memory wrong?" "What's wrong? It's your brain that's getting old. You said that I degenerate and I want to fight you." Looking at the two giants who were about to fight again, Long Yu rolled his eyes helplessly, frowned, and took out a restless life card with his backhand. He remembered that this life card was given to him by Hancock after he escaped from the Chambord Islands. According to the magnitude of the vibration and the reaction, it means that Hancock is not far away from him. At the same time, there may be danger. What happened to the captain? Dong Li glanced at it and said anxiously. These words fell, they instantly attracted everyone's attention. Chapter 539, Nightmare. The thunder-like explosion resounded, and the blast wave that was set off rolled back like a frenzy. Which was originally not calm, suddenly set off a big wave. The pirate ship in it, like a flat boat, became unstable, as if it would capsize at any time. "Hancock, why don't you send a distress signal quickly? The Navy is chasing this lunatic." Mother-in-law, leaning on a cane, reluctantly stood up, and hurriedly suggested. The huge island-like ship that was chasing more than 10 nautical miles behind him, his face turned pale. Half a day ago, they received the signal of the meeting point from the Navy, and they planned to rush to the past. I never thought that I would meet the madman Bundywold, the world destroyer, in the middle. In the face of ultra-long-range artillery shells, there is also a 100-fold increase in Momo's fruit. It can be said that no matter to flee or pursue, there is no way to get rid of the huge pirate ship in front of him. For anyone being targeted, this is a nightmare. You bastard, you actually asked your concubine to ask the Navy for help. Hancock's face turned cold, and he hurriedly shouted, "If this incident spreads out, will the concubine still have a face like Chihuahua? In the future, I am afraid that I will not only become a laughing stock among pirates, but how do the Navy headquarters, and even the world government treat me? Could it be that an old guy who is about to die can really take me down? What's more, everyone will forgive me what my concubine decides, because I am the most beautiful." The cold voice echoed on the huge deck. Facing Hancock's rebuttal, all the female warriors had already cast their fanatical gazes. Lord Hancock is right. Even if we die in battle, we will never ask the Navy headquarters for help. We are Chihuahua. For the reputation of Lady Empress, we will definitely be able to defeat these rude people. Looking at Hancock, who had mobilized the emotions of all the staff, his mother-in-law suddenly became angry. "Mother-in-law, my elder sister is right. We can become Chihuahua because we have the ability to make the Navy headquarters, and even the world government, jealous. If we ask for help now, it means compromise. In the future, we will have no right to speak in front of the Navy headquarters." Sonia said in a low voice. let's do it according to the elder sister. I agree too. Godrew also nodded in agreement. Okay, you can do what you say, don't blame you for not persuading you. Granny clenched the crutches in her hand, stomped towards the deck, and turned away angrily. Look at this. In one scene, Hancock couldn't help but snorted, an old woman who gets in the way. All the staff give me orders. Since he is chasing after him, he will fight back fiercely. I will sink them and let the world know that what the Navy headquarters can't do, our 9 snake pirates can do it. Lord Hancock is right, let's kill. For the 9 snakes, for Lord Hancock, let's kill. The hysterical screams of killing suddenly spread throughout the huge sea area. That had been pulling the pirate ship and fled in a hurry, stopped abruptly, then turned around and went to the Gulozhenchi, which was chasing after them. The violent scene made Wald, who was standing on the center deck of the Glossiaki, on the ship's cannon, startled at first, and then burst into laughter. Walolo, I didn't expect this so-called Chihuahua, gave up escaping, and planned to fight me instead. Let me take a good look at the capabilities of the world government's lackey, the so-called Chihuahua. Brother Bingjak, prepare ships and cannons for me, and I want them newcomers to know, the ward pirates, not. They can provoke them. Crazy laughter echoed on the huge deck. As the vice-captain of the ward pirates, and also Ward's eldest brother, Bing Jake, has long been old and frail, and has been leaning on a hanging bottle all the year round. Looking at the unscrupulous Walder, he couldn't help saying, Wald, according to the information, the Navy headquarters is still chasing us. Now, we shouldn't waste time here. In case the Navy headquarters, like last time, forms an encirclement, I'm afraid there will be no second storm and let us get out of trouble. What's more, with your current physical strength, it's probably too much of a burden to control the Gulosik for a long time. As a product of the old times, at the age of 45, Wald was conspired by the alliance of the Navy and pirates, and was sent to the advanced city prison. In the 6th layer, it is frozen. This kind of treatment was even stricter than the Golden Lion sent to the 6th floor at that time. After all, in the sea at that time, the Golden Lion was unscrupulous, but not as crazy as Walder. Regardless of, is the Navy, or the pirates, even the Tianlong people, and some islands blocking the road will be destroyed by him. According to Wald, there is absolutely nothing on the way that can hinder his pace. However, that kind of arrogant and domineering, but the product of more than 30 years ago. After a long period of freezing, Wald's appearance did not look much older. But the real age has reached 78 years old. Chapter 540, 50 times increase. Takes a long time to use Momo's fruit ability to speed up the Glossiaki. It's not a huge burden. He can completely ignore his old body now. I'm still planning to use the ship's cannon. The pressure that will be endured has been infinitely magnified. Once at this juncture, encountering sniping from the naval headquarters, it will undoubtedly make things worse. You bastard, what do you mean? I've been eliminated from this era, so should I obediently hide? Walder's face darkened and roared. If you don't go, old guy, then I will come by myself. Abandoning these words, Wald swayed, directly past Bing Jack, and appeared behind the ship's cannon. When the big hand slapped the huge ship's cannon, the low-pitched turning sound of the gears resounded. Wald. When Bing Jack saw this, his expression suddenly became anxious. Go away, don't stand in my way, I'm going to sink them all, even if I come, I won't be able to stop me. Walder roared again and again. The huge gun barrel, under the rotation of the gear, was instantly locked on the 9 snake pirates who were approaching fast in the distance. Witnessing this scene, Walder's face couldn't help but show a frantic smile. Haha, with this cannon on the ship, I see how you approach me. Today, I will let you taste the taste of sinking the sea with one blow. Momo fruit, 50-fold increase. Along with the roar, Walder slapped the ship's cannon with his right hand. When the low metal collision sound reverberated, the huge fruit power, like a frenzy, poured into the ship's cannon. The pitch-black cannons of ships are more than 10 meters large. With other ship-borne cannons, and even the dedicated cannons in the Navy headquarters, it is obviously more than 10 times different. Of course, it's not that the Navy headquarters couldn't make it. It's just that the larger the volume of the shell, the stronger the driving force required, the worse the accuracy, and the smaller the maneuverability. At the same time, with the current artillery technology, the range that can be achieved is also infinitely reduced. Once the oversized cannonball is detonated, they will probably bring disaster to themselves. Therefore, for this special cannon, only Wald can cast Momogo. To be able to use. The huge black gun barrel was slowly erected, and when the shooting trajectory was adjusted, it was instantly locked on the sea area where the Nine Snakes pirate ship was. 7 or 8, Haley, still able to, sister, what is this thing like? This huge artillery fire reach the sea where we are? Sonia couldn't help asking. Faced with this unknown means of attack, it is a worry for anyone. Hancock's face also sank all of a sudden. As a battle-hardened veteran, she is conceited. However, there is a lot of experience in combat. What's more, as the Empress of Nine Snake Island who is prevalent in domineering use, her use of three-color domineering is stronger than that of ordinary pirates. When she saw the cannon of this ship, an inexplicable feeling of anxiety flashed in her heart. Facing the cruel words thrown just now, his face sank, and he gritted his teeth and shouted, "Stop chasing in a straight line, immediately. Switch to detour tactics and try to get rid of the danger of aiming at the gun channel." "I know my sister." Godreau, who was at the helm, heard the words and reacted instantly. For other pirate ships, and even warships, this sudden turn-like operation may be difficult. However, in addition to using mechanical and wind energy, the Nine Snake pirate ship also has kinetic energy from sea snakes. As long as the order is delivered, it is not without problems to turn in an instant. "Oh, you actually know how to turn and want to avoid my edge." Walter let out a small snort, and then laughed horribly. "Ha ha, you girl, it seems that you have also noticed the greatness of the ship's cannon that I have carefully built. However, you underestimated the power of Wald, the destroyer of my world. Today I will see how you can hide as the prey I am aiming at." Boom! The huge ship's cannon made a low sound of gears snapping, and finally the artillery channel was instantly settled. The madness on Wald's face, who witnessed this scene, became brighter and brighter, and the moment his eyes were on the Nine Snakes pirate ship, the long-awaited blow suddenly detonated. "Little girl, have a taste of the blow I carefully prepared for you, the current Walter is not. 30 years can compare. Momo fruit 50 times. Boom! The thunder-like sound of artillery bombardment detonated without warning. The violent air wave and the impact it brought made the huge gun barrel hurriedly push back. And waves caused even Bing Jack to stand up and fell directly to the ground. However, in the face of all this, Bing Jack obviously didn't care at all. The turbid old eyes were locked on the ship's cannon and the shells that were gushing out. "Escape quickly." The old roar sounded.